In the village of Boma, life revolved around the sea. The sea gave life, brought food, and connected the village to the rest of the world. But the sea also took. It was said that the sea never truly gave anything for free. One day, it would take back what it wanted. This was a story passed down by the elders, but no one really believed it except Nia. Nia's father, Jumo, was the best fisherman in all of Boma. He had taught Nia everything about the sea. She could tie nets, row boats, and even tell when a storm was coming by just looking at the sky. But one day, Jumo went out to fish and never returned. For days, the villagers searched. They sent boats out, hoping to find him, but there was no trace of Jumo or his boat. Some whispered that the sea had taken him, like it always did when it was ready. Nia refused to believe it. She knew her father was out there somewhere. She just had to find him. The elders of the village gathered around Nia's home, whispering about the dangers of the sea and how no one had ever returned once they were taken. But Nia was not afraid. She had grown up by the sea, and she felt its power. She also felt her father's spirit calling to her, telling her that he was still alive. One night, when the moon was full, Nia decided it was time. She would go into the sea and find her father. With nothing but her father's old fishing boat, some food, and a small lantern, she set off into the night. The waves were calm at first, but soon they grew larger, as if the sea itself was angry that she dared to challenge it. As she rowed further and further, Nia began to see strange things in the water. Shadows moved beneath the surface, and she could hear faint whispers carried by the wind. It felt as though the sea was alive and watching her every move. But she didn't turn back. She couldn't. Suddenly, a huge wave crashed over the boat, and Nia was thrown into the water. She struggled to stay afloat, gasping for air as the waves pulled her down. Her boat drifted away, leaving her alone in the dark water. Just when she thought she would drown, something grabbed her ankle and pulled her under. Nia fought with all her strength, but the grip was too strong. As she was pulled deeper, the water grew colder and darker. She could barely see anything, but she felt something close by, something ancient and powerful. Then, through the murky water, she saw them, glowing eyes staring right at her. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The creature pulled her closer, and as it did, Nia felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. The eyes weren't menacing, they were curious, as if the creature was studying her. Then, a voice echoed in her mind. "Why have you come here, child of the sea?" Nia couldn't speak, but her thoughts answered. "I'm looking for my father. The sea took him." The creature's grip loosened, and Nia floated freely in the water. She could see it more clearly now. It had the body of a fish but the face of a woman, with long, flowing hair made of seaweed and skin that shimmered like the scales of a fish. "Your father, yes," the sea remembers him. "He is still alive, but he is trapped, far beneath the surface, in a place where the light does not reach." "Take me to him," Nia pleaded. The creature tilted its head, studying her again. "You do not understand, little one. The sea is not kind to those who seek what it has claimed. To reach your father, you must be willing to give something in return." "What do you want?" Nia asked, her heart pounding. "The sea does not take things of little value. It would demand your most precious possession. Are you willing to make that sacrifice?" Nia didn't hesitate. "Yes. I will give anything to save him." The creature smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. "Then we shall see if you have the strength to do what is needed." With a flick of its tail, the creature disappeared, leaving Nia alone in the water. But something was different now. She wasn't sinking. She could breathe. The water felt like air, and she could see clearly, as if she were still above the surface. Nia began to swim, following a path illuminated by the faint glow of the creature's eyes in the distance. The deeper she went, the more she saw strange, glowing fish, ancient ruins covered in coral, and shadows that moved in the corners of her vision. As she swam, she thought of her father. She remembered his laugh, the way he would lift her up onto his shoulders when she was small, and the nights they spent watching the stars together. She couldn't lose him. Not now. Not ever. The journey felt endless, but finally, Nia reached a dark, bottomless trench. The creature was waiting for her, hovering at the edge of the abyss. "He is down there," the creature said, its voice cold. "But once you go down, there is no turning back." Nia nodded, steeling herself for whatever lay ahead. She took a deep breath, even though she no longer needed air, and dove into the darkness. The trench was colder than anything Nia had ever felt. It felt like the cold was seeping into her bones, chilling her from the inside out. But she kept going, her mind focused on one thing, her father. Suddenly, she saw it. A faint light, far below. As she swam closer, she realized it wasn't just a light. It was a person. Her father. He was floating in the water, his eyes closed, surrounded by strange glowing fish. He looked peaceful, as if he were simply sleeping. "Father!" Nia cried, swimming faster. But as she reached him, something wrapped around her wrist, thin, icy tendrils that pulled her back. She turned to see the creature from before, but it wasn't alone this time. Dozens of other sea spirits surrounded her, their glowing eyes watching her every move. "You've come far, little one," the creature said. "But this is where your journey ends. You cannot take him. He belongs to the sea now." Nia's heart pounded in her chest. "No. I won't leave him here. I made a promise." The creature's smile widened, and the spirits began to close in. "Then you must choose, Nia. Will you sacrifice what is most precious to you, or will you live and save yourself?" Nia looked at her father, so close yet so far. She thought of everything she had done to get here, the dangers she had faced, the sacrifices she had made. And she knew there was only one answer. "I will sacrifice anything to save him." The creature's eyes gleamed with a dark satisfaction. "Very well. The sea will take your sacrifice. But remember, once given, it cannot be undone." Nia closed her eyes, bracing herself for whatever was to come. But as the cold tendrils wrapped around her, she felt something change deep inside her, something she couldn't quite understand. Suddenly, Nia felt a sharp pain deep within her chest. It was as if the sea was pulling something from inside her, something she had never known was there. Her heart raced, her body shivering as the icy tendrils wrapped tighter around her, binding her to the sea. But she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She kept her focus on her father, floating just out of reach. The sea spirits hovered around her, their glowing eyes watching with eerie calm. Nia could feel them waiting for her sacrifice to be complete. "What are you taking from me?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The creature's face softened, though its smile remained cold. "Your future, little one. The sea will take your most precious possession, your future on the land. You will never walk on the earth again, never feel the warmth of the sun or the wind on your face. You will belong to the sea, as your father does now." Nia's heart sank. She had known there would be a cost, but she hadn't realized it would be this. To save her father, she would have to give up her life above the waves, her home, her friends, everything. She would be bound to the sea forever. But she had no choice. She couldn't leave her father here. Not after all she had gone through. Not after coming so far. "I accept," Nia said, her voice firm, though her heart was breaking. The sea spirits began to chant, their voices echoing through the water, and the tendrils tightened, pulling Nia closer to the abyss. She could feel her legs growing heavier, her body changing, transforming. Her feet fused together, her skin shimmered like scales, and her hair floated around her like seaweed. She was becoming one of them. Just when Nia thought she could take no more, the tendrils loosened, and she floated free. Her body felt strange, lighter yet more powerful. She could breathe without struggling, move through the water with ease. She had become part of the sea. The creature watched her with a curious glint in its eyes. You have made your choice, little one. Now, take your father and go. But remember, the sea will always watch you. It does not forget its debts. Nia nodded, though her heart felt heavy. She swam to her father, who still floated peacefully in the water. She touched his hand, and a surge of warmth spread through her fingers. Slowly, his eyes fluttered open. "Father," Nia whispered, her voice trembling. "It's me, Nia." Jumo blinked, his eyes focusing on her face. "Nia, is it really you?" Tears filled Nia's eyes as she nodded. "Yes, it's me. I came to find you." Jumo's face softened with love, but then his gaze shifted, and he saw what had happened to her. His expression turned to one of horror. "What have you done?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. Why are you like this?" Nia swallowed hard, trying to keep her voice steady. "I had to save you, father. The sea wouldn't let me take you without a price. I had to give up my life on the land. I belong to the sea now." Jumo's face crumpled with grief, and he pulled her close, holding her tightly. "No, Nia. You should have left me. You shouldn't have done this." "I couldn't," Nia whispered, her tears mixing with the cold water around them. "I couldn't leave you." For a long time, they floated there, father and daughter, wrapped in each other's arms. The sea spirits watched from a distance, their glowing eyes unblinking. Finally, Jumo spoke, his voice heavy with sorrow. "We must leave this place. We cannot stay here." Nia nodded, though she wasn't sure where they would go. She had given up her life on the land, and now, the sea was her home. But as long as she had her father, she felt like she could face whatever came next. Together, they swam through the dark waters, leaving the trench behind. The sea felt different now, darker, colder, as if it were watching them closely, waiting for something. Nia could feel it in her bones. The sea had taken her sacrifice, but its hunger wasn't satisfied. It was never truly satisfied. As they swam, Nia couldn't shake the feeling that something was still lurking in the shadows, something ancient and powerful. The sea had given her father back, but it had taken something more in return. She just didn't know what it was yet. Days passed, though time seemed strange underwater. Jumo and Nia found refuge in a hidden cove beneath the waves, far from the village. The sea creatures left them alone, but Nia could feel their presence. She could feel the pull of the sea, tugging at her new form, reminding her of the cost of her sacrifice. One evening, as they sat on the rocky floor of the cove, Jumo turned to her, his face troubled. "Nia, there is something you need to know," he said quietly. Nia looked at him, her heart pounding. "What is it, father?" Jumo hesitated, then sighed. "Before I disappeared, before the sea took me, I made a bargain. I thought it would help our family, bring us more fortune. But I didn't realize the price I would have to pay." Nia's breath caught in her throat. "A bargain? With who?" Jumo looked down at the ground, shame filling his eyes. "With the sea spirits. They promised me great catches, more fish than anyone had ever seen. But in return, they demanded a sacrifice. I thought I could escape it. But the sea does not forget." Nia's heart pounded in her chest. "What did they want, father?" Jumo's voice was barely a whisper. "They wanted you." Nia felt the world around her spin, the weight of her father's words crashing over her like a tidal wave. The sea spirits hadn't taken her father, They had been waiting for her all along. She had been the prize, and her father's bargain had sealed her fate. Tears filled Nia's eyes as the truth sank in. She had given up everything to save her father, but it was her life the sea had wanted all along. And now, there was no way to escape its grasp. The realization hit Nia like a storm, a swirling whirlpool of emotions she couldn't escape. She stared at her father, her heart pounding in her chest. "You bargained with my life," she whispered, barely able to speak the words. "You gave me to the sea." Jumo's face crumpled with regret, his voice breaking. "Nia, I didn't know it would come to this. I thought I could outsmart them, that I could protect you. But I was wrong." Nia's hands trembled as she looked at him. She had sacrificed so much to save her father, only to find out that he had been the one to set her fate in motion. The sea had claimed her because of him. "You didn't protect me," she said softly, her voice filled with pain. "You doomed me." Jumo looked at her with eyes full of sorrow, but Nia couldn't bear it. She pushed away from him, swimming to the far end of the cove. The water felt cold, like it was wrapping around her heart, squeezing tighter with every moment. Nia's mind raced. How could she have been so blind? All this time, she had thought the sea was punishing her father. But it had always been about her. She was the one the spirits had wanted, the one her father had promised them. And now, she was trapped in their world, bound to the sea forever. For hours, Nia drifted in the water, her emotions swirling as wildly as the currents around her. The sea was silent, but she could feel it watching her, waiting for something. She knew now that the sea was never truly satisfied. It was always hungry, always looking for more. A part of her wanted to leave, to swim far away from her father and never look back. But deep down, she knew that wouldn't change anything. The sea had claimed her, and there was no running from it. Just as Nia was sinking into despair, a flicker of light caught her eye. She turned and saw a figure in the distance, swimming toward her. At first, she thought it was her father, but as the figure came closer, she realized it was someone else, a girl around her age, with glowing eyes and flowing hair. The girl stopped a few feet away from Nia, her gaze piercing. She didn't speak, but her presence was powerful, as if the sea itself had sent her. "Who are you?" Nia asked, her voice small. The girl tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. Then, without warning, she reached out and touched Nia's hand. In an instant, a flood of memories washed over Nia, visions of the past, of other children who had been claimed by the sea, just like her. She saw them swimming through the depths, their eyes glowing with the same eerie light as the girl before her. They were trapped, bound to the ocean forever, just as she was. But then, something strange happened. Nia saw herself in the vision, standing before the sea spirits, but this time she was older, stronger. She wasn't just a victim of the sea. She was something more. The vision faded, and Nia blinked, gasping for breath. The girl was still watching her, her eyes filled with an emotion Nia couldn't quite place. "You were like me," Nia whispered. "You were taken by the sea." The girl nodded slowly, her glowing eyes never leaving Nia's. "Is there no way out?" Nia asked, her voice barely audible. "Am I trapped here forever?" The girl didn't answer, but she pointed toward the dark trench far in the distance, the same trench where Nia had found her father. Her meaning was clear. Whatever Nia needed to find, whatever truth she sought, it lay there, in the deepest part of the sea. Nia's heart raced. She had already faced the trench once, and it had almost destroyed her. But now, she knew she had no choice. If she wanted to break free from the sea's grasp, she had to go back. She turned to the girl, her resolve hardening. "I'll find a way," she said firmly. "I won't stay trapped here." The girl gave a small, almost imperceptible smile before she began to fade, her form dissolving into the water. Nia watched as the glowing light disappeared, leaving her alone once again. But this time, she wasn't afraid. Nia swam back to the cove, her heart pounding with determination. Her father looked up as she approached, his face still filled with guilt and sorrow. "Father," she said, her voice steady. "I'm going back to the trench." Juma's eyes widened in shock. "Nia, no. It's too dangerous. You don't know what's down there." "I have to," she said, her voice firm. "I can't stay like this, trapped by the sea. There's something down there, something that might help me break free." Juma shook his head, his face pale. "But the sea spirits." "I'm not afraid of them anymore," Nia interrupted. "I've already lost so much. I won't lose myself too." Juma's eyes filled with tears as he looked at her, but he didn't try to stop her. He knew, just as she did, that this was the only way. Without another word, Nia turned and swam toward the trench, her heart racing with both fear and determination. The water grew darker and colder as she neared the abyss, but she didn't hesitate. She was ready for whatever waited for her down there. As she reached the edge of the trench, the sea seemed to stir around her, its currents shifting like restless whispers. Nia felt the pull of the abyss, beckoning her deeper, but she steeled herself, refusing to be afraid. She dove into the darkness, the water closing in around her like a shroud. The trench seemed endless, its depth stretching on and on, but Nia kept going, driven by a force she couldn't explain. The sea had taken her future, but it hadn't taken her will. And now, she was going to take it back. The deeper Nia swam into the trench, the colder and darker it became. The water pressed against her from all sides, a suffocating weight that grew heavier with each stroke. The silence was thick, broken only by the faint sound of her own heartbeat. It felt like the sea itself was watching her every move, waiting for her to falter. But Nia didn't stop. Her determination was stronger than her fear, and the image of the glowing-eyed girl flashed in her mind, another child who had been taken by the sea. Nia refused to become like her. She would not be trapped forever in the sea's clutches. Suddenly, a strange, eerie glow appeared in the distance. It was faint at first, but as Nia swam closer, it grew brighter, illuminating the trench with an unnatural light. She squinted, trying to make out the source of the glow, and her heart skipped a beat when she saw it. At the bottom of the trench, there was a massive, ancient-looking stone altar. It was covered in glowing symbols that pulsed with a soft, blue light, and surrounding the altar were the shadows of figures, other children, their eyes glowing like the girls. They stood silently, their expressions blank, as if they were waiting for something. Nia's breath caught in her throat. She had seen these children before, in her visions. They were the lost ones, the children who had been claimed by the sea spirits. And now, they stood before the altar, bound to the sea forever. Her gaze shifted to the center of the altar, where a swirling whirlpool of water hovered above it, suspended in the air like a portal. It was mesmerizing, and Nia felt an almost irresistible pull toward it, as if the whirlpool was calling her. But she knew better. This was a trap, a lure for the souls the sea had claimed. She had to be careful. As Nia moved closer, the children's heads slowly turned to look at her, their glowing eyes locking onto hers. They didn't speak, but their silence was deafening, and their stares sent a chill down Nia's spine. For a moment, doubt crept into her mind. Could she really defy the sea spirits? Could she escape their grip? The pull of the whirlpool grew stronger, tugging at her, urging her to step forward. But Nia shook her head, pushing the thoughts away. "I won't be like you," she whispered, her voice trembling but determined. The children didn't respond. They continued to stare at her, their faces emotionless, as if they had forgotten how to feel. Nia clenched her fist, forcing herself to move forward. She swam toward the altar, her eyes fixed on the glowing symbols. If there was a way to break free from the sea's hold, it had to be here. The symbols seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat, as if they were alive, waiting for her to unlock their secrets. As she reached the altar, Nia hesitated. The water around her felt thick and heavy, as if the sea was trying to pull her back. Her instinct screamed at her to turn around, to leave before it was too late. But she knew she couldn't. She had come too far to turn back now. Taking a deep breath, Nia reached out and touched one of the glowing symbols. The moment her fingers made contact, a surge of energy shot through her body, and the water around her erupted in a violent whirlpool. The force of it knocked her backward, and she struggled to stay afloat as the sea roared to life. Suddenly, a deep, echoing voice filled the trench, vibrating through the water and into Nia's bones. "You dare defy us, child of the land," the voice boomed. "You who were promised to the sea." Nia's heart raced as she looked around, trying to find the source of the voice. But there was nothing, only the swirling water and the glowing symbols. "I didn't choose this," Nia shouted, her voice barely audible over the roar of the sea. "You took me. You took all of us." The voice laughed, a dark, rumbling sound that sent shivers down Nia's spine. "You are bound to us by your father's promise. There is no escape, child. The sea always takes what is owed." Nia's eyes filled with tears, but she refused to give in. "I don't belong to you," she cried. "I belong to myself." The whirlpool intensified, and the glowing symbols on the altar flared brighter, casting an eerie light across the trench. The children surrounding the altar began to move, their eyes glowing more intensely as they reached out toward Nia, their hands outstretched as if to pull her in. But Nia didn't back down. She focused on the symbols, her mind racing. There had to be a way to break the sea's hold on her. She just had to find it. Suddenly, a memory flashed in her mind, a memory of the story her mother used to tell her, the one about the girl who had outsmarted the sea spirits. Nia's eyes widened as she realized what she had to do. Gathering all her strength, Nia turned toward the glowing whirlpool and shouted, "I challenge you." The sea roared in response, the voice booming with anger. "You dare challenge us, child?" Nia's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. "If I win, you let me go. If I lose, I'll stay." The water around her seemed to pause, as if the sea itself was considering her offer. The children stopped moving, their glowing eyes fixed on her, and the voice fell silent for a moment. Then, slowly, the whirlpool began to come, and the voice spoke again, this time with a hint of amusement. "Very well, child. We accept your challenge. But be warned, the sea does not lose." Nia's heart raced as the water around her began to swirl again, but this time it wasn't violent. It was controlled, deliberate, as if the sea was preparing for something. She took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. She had no idea what kind of challenge the sea would throw at her, but she knew one thing, she wouldn't give up. Not now, not ever. The sea had taken enough from her. It was time for her to take something back. The sea began to shift around Nia, swirling with a rhythm that felt both foreign and familiar. As the water settled into a smooth surface, it created a vast arena, a perfect circle where Nia could face her unseen opponent. The glowing symbols on the altar brightened, casting a magical light that danced across the water's surface. The eerie calm made Nia's heart race with both fear and excitement. "Prepare yourself, child," the deep voice echoed, resonating from the depths of the sea. "Your challenge will test your mind and heart. Only those pure of spirit can withstand our trials." Nia stilled herself, taking a deep breath. She had to remember that she was not alone, the spirits of the lost children were watching her, and she needed to be their voice. She looked around at the children, hoping to see some spark of life in their eyes, some sign that they were rooting for her. First, You must answer this riddle, the voice continued, and the water around her shimmered with anticipation. What is stronger than the sea, but weaker than a whisper? It can bring life and yet is gone with a sigh. Nia thought hard. She had always loved riddles, and her mother often spoke in riddles, making her childhood filled with playful challenges. This felt different, though, heavier, more serious. She needed to get it right. As the seconds ticked by, Nia remembered the nights spent by the fire, listening to the elders share stories. One story floated to the surface of her mind, about the wind that whispered secrets through the trees. The answer is, the wind, she exclaimed, her voice steady and loud enough to cut through the silence. The water rippled, and the voice boomed with laughter, a sound that echoed like thunder. Clever child. You have answered correctly, but do not celebrate yet, the second trial awaits. Nia felt a surge of relief wash over her, but it was short-lived as she sensed the sea's mood shifting again. The water darkened, and shadows began to swirl around her. Suddenly, a thick fog enveloped the arena, making it hard to see. The children's glowing eyes faded into the mist, and Nia felt an overwhelming sense of isolation. Your heart must guide you now, the voice declared, sounding distant and haunting. Find your way through the fog. If you can escape, you shall continue. If you falter, the sea will claim you. Nia's heart raced as she took her first step into the fog. The air was thick and heavy, making each breath feel like a challenge. She closed her eyes, focusing on the sounds around her, the gentle lapping of the waves, the faint whispers of the lost children echoing through the mist. Stay strong, Nia, she whispered to herself, using the sound of her own voice as a guide. She felt for the walls of the fog, letting her hands sweep through the dense air as she moved forward, unsure of where she was headed. Suddenly, a voice cut through the fog, soft and melodic. Nia, come with us, we can help you. Nia froze, recognizing the voice. It was the same as the glowing-eyed girl from her dreams. No! Nia shouted, shaking her head. I won't follow you. I have to find my way out. The voice transformed into a soft giggle, a sound that echoed mockingly through the mist. You think you can escape? The sea knows all paths. It knows you. Nia pressed on, her heart pounding. I know who I am, she called out defiantly. I'm not lost. I won't let you take me. The fog thickened, swirling faster around her, and the whispers of the children grew louder, rising into a cacophony of sounds that echoed in her ears. Join us, Nia. Stay with us. You'll never escape. Desperate, Nia squeezed her eyes shut, blocking out the voices. She focused on the feel of the water on her skin, the sensation of the sea surrounding her. She thought of her village, of her mother's warm embrace, of the laughter and love that filled her home. With every thought, the fog around her began to thin. Love is my guide, she said aloud, her voice firm. Love is stronger than fear. As if responding to her words, the fog began to dissolve, lifting away to reveal the shimmering altar and the glowing symbols. The children's eyes sparkled once more, and Nia felt their presence beside her, strong and supportive. You have passed the second trial, the voice boomed, but this time it felt lighter, less ominous. Now for the final challenge. Nia stepped forward, determined. What do I need to do? The final challenge is the hardest. You must face your deepest fear, the voice replied. Only by confronting what lies within your heart can you find true freedom. Nia's heart sank at the thought. What was her greatest fear? She had faced so much already, could she bear to confront more? The water began to ripple again, swirling in a mesmerizing dance. A figure emerged from the depths, rising slowly through the water. Nia's eyes widened in shock as she recognized the figure. It was her father. Papa, she cried, her heart aching. She hadn't seen him since the day he promised her to the sea. Is it really you? He nodded slowly, his expression somber. Nia, my child, I am here, but I am not free. The sea holds me captive because of the promise I made. You must choose, stay with me, or return to your village and break the pact. Nia's heart tore in two. She wanted to be with her father, to hold him close and never let go. But she also remembered the lost children, the lives trapped beneath the sea. She thought of her dreams, of her home, of the love that surrounded her there. No, she shouted, tears streaming down her face. I won't let you go. You deserve to be free. The water around her surged, the energy crackling in the air as her father's figure flickered like a flame. You must choose, Nia. Your heart holds the key. In that moment, Nia understood her fear. It wasn't losing her father, it was losing herself in the process. She had to be strong, not just for herself, but for him and the children lost to the sea. I choose freedom for us both, she declared, her voice steady and unwavering. I will break the pact. As she spoke those words, a brilliant light exploded from the altar, filling the trench with warmth and illumination. The symbols began to spin wildly, and the whirlpool swirled faster, pulling Nia and her father closer together. Together, we can break this curse. Nia shouted, reaching out to grasp her father's hand. Together, we can be free. The moment their fingers touched, a shockwave surged through the water, rippling outwards. The children around the altar began to stir, their eyes blinking as they came back to life. One by one, they reached out, joining hands with Nia and her father, creating a chain of hope and love. The voice of the sea roared in anger, but Nia stood firm. We are not bound to your will any longer. We choose love, we choose freedom. As their hands connected, a blinding light erupted from their clasped hands, and the trench shook with the force of a mighty wave. The darkness that had held them captive began to dissolve, breaking apart like glass shattering in sunlight. Suddenly, the water around them surged violently, and Nia felt herself being pulled away. The last thing she saw was her father's proud smile as the light engulfed them, and then everything went white. When the light faded, Nia found herself lying on the warm sand of the beach, the sun shining down on her. She blinked, confused, as the sound of waves lapping against the shore filled her ears. She sat up, looking around in disbelief. She was home. But as she stood, the weight of her father's absence settled in her heart. Would she ever see him again? As she gazed out at the ocean, she spotted a familiar glow just beneath the surface, shimmering like a beacon. Nia's heart raced as she realized it was the children, their eyes glowing brightly, now free from the sea's grasp. They danced and twirled in the water, a joyful celebration of freedom. Nia smiled, tears of joy streaming down her face. We did it, she cried out, raising her hands in triumph. We broke the curse. The children waved, their laughter ringing through the air like music. Nia felt a warmth spread through her heart, knowing they would never be forgotten. But then, she remembered the promise to the sea. It wasn't over yet. She turned back to the water, a fierce determination burning in her chest. I will not forget what you took from us, she shouted into the waves. I will make sure no one else suffers because of you. The water rippled ominously in response, and Nia took a step back, feeling a chill run down her spine. The sea would not let her go easily, and she could sense that the battle was far from over. But Nia was no longer afraid. She had faced her deepest fears and emerged stronger. She would find a way to protect her village, to honor her father's memory, and to safeguard the spirits of the children. With newfound courage, Nia set off along the beach, ready to gather the villagers and share her